It is the coldest night of the year, and you nudge the thermostat up a couple of degrees. A few seconds later, the basement comes alive. Something whirs, then clicks, then there is a low whoosh, and a minute after that, warm air starts drifting out of the vents in the floor. Hardly anyone thinks about the box in the basement that makes all of that happen. They just want it to work. But once you understand what that furnace is actually doing in those 60 seconds, the whole machine stops being a mystery, and a lot of the scary noises and habits start to make sense. Here is the simplest way to think about it. A furnace only has two jobs. It makes heat and it moves heat. That is the entire machine. Everything bolted inside that metal box is there to do one of those two things, and once you can sort every part into make heat or move heat, you understand a furnace better than half the people who own one. One quick note before we open it up, because people mix these up all the time. A furnace makes its own heat, which is what sets it apart from a heat pump, which gathers warmth from the outside air, and from a boiler, which heats water rather than air. Let me walk you through exactly what happens from the moment you turn up the thermostat in the order it actually happens, because the order is the whole story. It starts with the thermostat on your wall. That is the brain of the system, and its only real job is to watch the temperature and decide when the house needs heat. When the room drops below the number you set, the thermostat sends a tiny low voltage signal down a thin wire to the furnace. Think of it as a doorbell, not a power line. It is not sending heat or much electricity, just a message that says start. The first thing that message wakes up is a small fan called the draft inducer. This is the whir you hear before anything else. Its job is to pull air through the part of the furnace where the fire is about to happen and push the exhaust out of the vent before a single flame lights. This matters more than it sounds. You do not want combustion gases sitting still inside a furnace, so the machine clears the chimney first and lights the fire second. Right after the inducer spins up, a little safety part called the pressure switch checks its work. The pressure switch is basically asking one question. Is air actually moving the way it should be? If the vent is blocked or that inducer fan is weak, the switch stays open and the furnace simply refuses to light. No proven airflow, no fire. It is the first of several safety gates the furnace will not skip. Once the draft checks out, the igniter heats up. On most furnaces built in the last 20 years, this is a hot surface igniter, a small element that glows bright orange when the power hits it, the way a stovetop burner glows when you crank it up. Older furnaces use a spark, and the really old ones keep a small pilot flame burning all the time. Whatever the method, the point is the same. The furnace needs a reliable source of fire before it dares let any gas out. Then, and only then, the gas valve opens. Gas flows to the burners, which are a row of metal tubes lined up under the heart of the furnace. The igniter lights the gas, and the burners come alive with a steady row of blue flames. That low whoosh you heard from upstairs was this moment. Blue is the color you want to see. A clean gas flame burns blue, and if you ever see those flames burning yellow or orange and lazy, that is a sign something is off and worth a closer look. Now comes a part most homeowners do not know exists, and it is the one that prevents the scariest failures. A thin metal rod called the flame sensor sits right in the path of the burner flames. Its only job is to confirm that the fire actually lit. If it does not feel a flame within a couple of seconds, the control board shuts the gas valve instantly, because the last thing you want is raw gas pouring into a furnace that did not ignite. A dirty flame sensor is one of the most common reasons a furnace lights for a second and then quits, over and over. The fix is often just cleaning a part the size of your finger, which is a nice thing to know before anyone quotes you for a new furnace. So far, everything has been about making heat. Now the furnace switches to its second job, moving it. After the burners have been lit for 30 to 90 seconds, the big blower fan kicks on. This is the muscle of the whole system. It pulls cool air from your house through the return vents, blows it across the hot metal, and pushes the warmed air out through the supply vents into your rooms. The delay before it starts is on purpose. The furnace waits for the metal to warm up first, so you get warm air instead of a cold blast in the face. The hot metal the air blows across is the single most important part in the whole furnace, and it is worth understanding clearly. It is called the heat exchanger. Picture a set of hollow metal chambers, almost like a folded metal balloon. The fire and the exhaust gases travel through the inside of it. The air from your house flows around the outside of it. The two never come into contact. Your house air picks up heat right through the metal wall, the way a pot warms soup without the flame ever touching the soup. That separation is not a small detail. It is the entire safety design of a gas furnace, and we will come back to why it matters so much. When the thermostat finally reads the temperature you asked for, it stops sending its signal. The gas valve closes and the flames go out at once, but the blower keeps running for another minute or two, and this is the part that confuses people and even worries them a little. Nothing is actually wrong here. The fan is just sweeping the last of the heat out of that hot metal exchanger and into your house instead of letting it go to waste. Honestly, if your furnace did not do this, you would be paying to heat the inside of a metal box for no reason. That lingering fan is the furnace being smart with the heat you already paid for. That is the full cycle for a gas furnace. Call for heat, clear the air, prove the draft, light the igniter, open the gas, confirm the flame, warm the metal, move the air, and sweep the leftover heat on the way out. Every furnace you have ever stood next to runs some version of those steps. Not every furnace burns gas, though. An electric furnace skips the fire entirely. Instead of burners and a heat exchanger, it uses thick metal coils that heat up when electricity runs through them, exactly like the elements in a toaster or a hairdryer, just much bigger. The blower still does the same job, pushing house air across the hot coils and out to the rooms. The clever part is a piece called the sequencer, which switches those coils on one at a time a few seconds apart rather than all at once. If they all fired together, they would yank so much power that they would trip your breaker. Electric furnaces are simpler, they have no flame and no exhaust, so there is no carbon monoxide risk and no flue. They usually cost more to run though, because in most of the country, electricity is a pricier way to make heat than gas. Furnaces also come in different speeds, and this is where the names on the showroom floor come from. A single-stage furnace has one setting, full blast. The gas valve is either all the way open or all the way shut, like a light switch. A two-stage furnace adds a lower setting and spends most of its time there, only ramping to full power on the coldest days, which makes the house feel more even and the furnace run quieter. A modulating or variable speed furnace can fine-tune its output in tiny steps anywhere from about 40% up to full, like cruise control for heat. The HVAC techs and manuals I went through all land in the same place on this, that the fancier the furnace, the steadier and more efficient the heat, but also the more there is to go wrong and the more it costs to fix. That efficiency has a name you will see on the sticker, the AFUE rating. It is just the percentage of the fuel that actually turns into heat for your house. An 80% furnace puts 80% of the gas into your home and sends the other 20 up the flue. A high-efficiency model can hit 96 or 98%, wasting almost nothing. And here is a detail that explains a thing a lot of homeowners notice. Those high-efficiency furnaces are so good at squeezing heat out of the exhaust that the exhaust cools down enough to turn into water, which is why they have a little drain line and vent through white plastic pipe out the side of the house instead of a hot metal chimney. If your neighbor's furnace drips water and yours never has, that is the difference. One is a condensing furnace and one is not. Now back to that heat exchanger, because it is the one part of all this that is genuinely worth taking seriously. Remember, it is the metal wall that keeps the fire and the exhaust separate from the air you breathe. Over many years of heating up and cooling down, that metal can fatigue and crack. When it does, combustion gases, including carbon monoxide, can slip into the air your blower is circulating through every room. You cannot see carbon monoxide, smell it, or taste it, and the early symptoms feel just like the flu, headaches and dizziness and nausea that often ease up when you leave the house. A cracked heat exchanger cannot be patched, the furnace has to be replaced. None of this is meant to scare you off your furnace, which is a remarkably safe machine. It is just the reason every home with a gas furnace should have a working carbon monoxide detector near the bedrooms, and the reason a yearly checkup that includes a look at the heat exchanger is money well spent. Most of what keeps a furnace healthy, though, is almost embarrassingly simple. Picture a house where nobody has touched the air filter since spring. It clogs up and now the blower cannot pull enough air across that hot metal. The heat exchanger overheats, a safety part called the limit switch trips and shuts the burners off. The metal cools, the burners relight, and the furnace ends up turning on and off every few minutes all night long. People hear that and assume the furnace is dying. Usually it is a $5 filter that nobody changed. A neglected filter wrecks more furnaces than almost any mechanical fault, which is a frustrating thing to learn after the fact. Swap the filter every 1 to 3 months and you have done the single most valuable thing an owner can do. So that is a furnace start to finish, a thermostat that decides when, a fire or a set of coils that makes the heat, a sealed metal exchanger that hands that heat to your air while keeping the exhaust out of it, and a blower that moves it all where you want it to go. The whirs and clicks and the fan that runs a little long are just the machine working through its safety checklist in order, one step at a time. The next time it kicks on at 2 in the morning, you will know what each sound is doing and why. If you want the right carbon monoxide detector or the correct filter size for your unit, I have put options down in the description so you can match your furnace and keep it running clean.